Look for Subnautica Reaper if you want to see a scary thing.
Ooh. Ah, Jesus. This feels, even though we streamed last week, this feels like the first stream. It feels like last week was kind of a bonus.
The first stream of what? The new year or the...
The new year or the first stream of coming back from a break.
No, last week was a vacation stream, and it was great.
Yeah, it was really, really good.
But
yeah.
I feel you.
How did it feel to go back to work today?
I was really slow. I was really, really slow. Thankfully, I didn't have to like think too hard. It was blessedly a forgiving day.
Meetings?
Like meetings till noon and then nothing, which is like
that's good.
Pretty
That's
good.
fantastic.
A pretty good Monday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think I pretty much had
worse.
meetings all day. It wasn't great. Yeah.
Was that?
But I don't know.
Expected
I had
or
solid
surprising?
No, it was expected. It was all on the calendar. I don't know. I think I had 2 solid weeks off. I wasn't dreading going back to work last night, so that's always a good sign.
Yeah, 2 weeks is just enough to forget how to be good at work, though, which is really hard.
Yeah. When I opened my laptop this morning, the battery was just completely dead.
You know,
I plugged it in and I just like sat there for 10 minutes waiting for it to charge.
I thought about this and charged my laptop last week. I was like, I bet this will die.
you're so
And it
good.
was at 40%, and I was like, I'm really glad I plugged this in like sort of a day or two before New Year's.
Do you use YubiKeys at your work?
No, for all the silly security stuff, they're not into that, and I'm so grateful because I hate YubiKeys.
My suspicion is that YubiKeys drain your battery. This is like my 5G conspiracy.
Oh, that's a pretty good suspicion.
Yeah. 'Cause my computer will run out of batteries after like 24 hours of not being plugged in.
Faster with the YubiKey. Or just
Well,
fast.
the YubiKey is basically just a keyboard, right? It's literally just a USB keyboard that always types the same sequence of characters, or or rather,
Types, it types some
generates
sequence of characters, yeah.
some sequence, yeah. It actually is sort of random, but I think that might keep the computer awake. It's like, hey, computer, hey, computer, you know what? And then it just sprays a random string of characters out.
That's really, I mean, and they seem so somewhat janky sometimes, so I would actually totally believe that a badly designed one could
Sure.
keep the computer awake, so
Right.
your hypothesis is a good one.
So to ring in the new year, we thought it would be fun to do a special activity today, at least for the first half of the stream or so, or however long it takes.
We'll see how long it takes us, yeah.
And talk about our Jeff and Dom's. When I say Jeff and Dom, I mean Jeff's and Dom's
Yeah.
top 10 games of 2020.
10 each, right? 10 each.
Top 10, yes, exactly. Top 10 each.
We haven't
top 10
coordinated this
notable
at
games.
all.
Yeah, top 10 notable games. Notable meaning anything that we want the word to mean.
I kind of picked the
This
ones
is
I had the most fun with, yeah.
This is our stream, yes. So I've got the web browser open. I can Google stuff,
Oh, cool. I'm going
or I
to
can DuckDuckGo stuff as
yeah,
it were
totally.
on my computer. But
switch us to that screen.
how do we want to do this? Do we each want to go through 10 in a row, or do we want to switch up?
I
What do you think
think we should
works?
alternate.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, my friend, I will let you go first.
Okay, easy. I think Hades dominates the year for me.
Hades, yes.
It ate up a significant
Do I
amount
want to go to the
of-
Gamepedia?
Do you?
I just want to do Hades, the image search, I think.
It's a
So
hard
you're
thing
going
to
in
image
order
search.
of like, what's that?
It's a hard thing to image search because you get all those Disney movies.
You know what? This did pretty well. There's a lot of Zagreus.
Mm-hmm.
Got Thanatos here. Got some, what's her name here? Electo. God, she's terrible.
Electo was the worst one, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Got a Demeter over here. No, this is great. I'm glad. Hades now dominates the word Hades. Hades the game dominates the word.
As it deserves.
Yes. Let's improve this though. You're right. Okay, fantastic. So are you going in order of like your best games of the year? Is that it, or did you just start off with this one?
I kind of have it. I have my list kind of top to bottom and like what I liked most to least in the top 10. Or most least
Um,
notable. I mean, this is the one that I'm still like on Twitter making jokes with people about. So
yes. So you and I overlap on this one. This is definitely on my list as well.
I figured.
Up there near the top. So tell us about Hades.
I mean, it's interesting because I love roguelites and you hate roguelites, or at least
Yes.
don't love roguelites. And it seemed to find the perfect medium for both of us, so much that we like both played too much of this game.
We played it on stream already. We've talked a lot about Hades on this stream.
It's just perfect. And I actually saw I saw a recent critique of it as an incremental game, which I thought was interesting.
What's the name of the critique?
I gotta find this tweet. I'll find the tweet.
Incremental game.
Yes,
Is it on Twitter?
it was probably on Twitter. I think I know which list I can find it on.
What does an incremental game mean? It looks like Reddit even has a subreddit called Incremental Games.
Yeah, are you familiar with like Cow Clicker and
Oh yeah, totally.
yeah, those are the incremental games where like if you do as long as you do one thing, it always gives you a little bit more. I think it was I can't find it, but it connected like incremental games and gotcha games and Hades. And like just interesting. It was nice to actually read something where someone wasn't super effusive about it for a change.
Interesting.
Because everything about that game is just like everyone's like it's the best thing ever.
Yeah,
And
the
they're not-
difference. This is not. I don't know. Like I felt like this is a lot more substantial than a cow clicker or something like that. And the distinction between this and gotcha games is I feel like with Hades, every run is interesting, even
Yep.
if you get crappy stuff,
Yep.
right? And I don't think that's necessarily true of gotcha games, right?
No, and I think that's where it ended up too. It was like it was an interesting way how I think it was actually the way the story is doled out.
Yeah.
And at the end they were like the story is just okay. For like the amount of work you put into it. I disagree. I loved it. I thought it was
I
it was
love the
entirely
story.
worth it.
Yeah, the story was great.
No, totally. I mean, that's why it's a critique and not something I wrote.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found the storytelling mechanic to this one to just be like kind of perfect.
Yeah.
And you haven't played any of these other Supergiant games, right?
I haven't. I played Bastion for all of 10 minutes.
Okay.
Do I own Bastion?
Everyone owns
even
Bastion.
know.
It's like impossible
Yeah.
not to own at this point.
just own it accidentally. Yeah.
Probably. I owned Opus Magnum accidentally, so it happens.
It's true. Yes. I'm eager to hear if that made your list, but it was pretty close to the end of the year. What else to be said about Hades? I think we mentioned last time that like if we had to critique it at all, I think there's almost too much game, even though it's like impressively minimalistic.
There's a lot of game. I think there's too many resources.
Too many resources.
Yeah, I just don't. It's when I see that many resources that I get that like free to play sort of.
All you
like,
need is
tinkle.
minerals and Vespian gas, and that's it.
Oh man, that post was really good too.
Are you talking about the one about RTSs?
yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Sorry, I gave you like this onslaught of random links over the break, but I hope that was a fun
It
read
was
for
great.
you.
Yeah, I read them and I enjoyed them. So absolutely.
Nice.
That was a delightful read. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there is too much of it. I still haven't finished the final quest. I should like go back and do that at some point.
Oh, did you actually get the cue for the final quest?
No.
At long last? Did,
No,
did Persephone say, "Hey, I've got a plan"?
I had to Google it, and it turned out I hadn't given enough boons to enough gods because I gave my boons to everyone but the gods. Like up to that.
Yeah.
So basically I had to do like 6 or 7 runs in a row where I like sold a bunch of shit, got a bunch of nectar, gave one to every god I could find.
Yeah.
You know, it was fine. And
Okay.
I had like a weird grind that I like probably could have missed if I hadn't been like, I really got to give this to Sisyphus and you're going to see Thanatos instead. But
That is not a bad segue into another critique, is that it's a bit grindy at times, right? So, like, for the amount of story that they do dole out, you do have to work for it at times. And I got to the point, this is a game that I actually decided to get a little bit good at. And I got to the point where, like, if I wanted to, I could beat it, right? Like, I would just, like,
Oh yeah,
I just like would pick your boons correctly, and then you can probably beat it, right?
yeah.
Unless you get super unlucky.
When there was definitely the like, there's a couple weapons that I can't beat it with, like the weird staff,
The staff.
the Guan Yu.
Oh yes, yeah.
Horrible.
Okay, yeah. So
Just
one
horrible.
the different aspects of the weapons, yeah.
Yeah, and I think some of the extra punishment modifiers are terribly hard.
Oh yeah. Okay, so fair enough. Like if basically like I think I found my favorite aspect of every weapon. There's 6 of them, and if I could pick that one, and I wasn't like being masochistic about heat, with the bounties, I could just beat it.
Yeah,
like
totally.
at will, because you get good at fighting Theseus and the Minotaur, and
Did you do Theseus on the harder mode though?
I did not do the level 2 Theseus.
I haven't tried that either. I stopped at level 2 Hydra, which
is really hard.
it was pretty hard. And
Yeah.
level 2 Theseus, he gets a minigun.
I didn't know that. I should go back and play it. Actually.
Sorry, you're an amateur. Just Google Theseus harder or minigun or something. I don't know, because the avatar is hilarious.
Theseus minigun.
Oh man, I don't know. It's just like his little avatar gets like a really hilarious bandolier, and it really
this
cracked
one?
me up. Yeah.
Nice. Who is this wretch? He calls you a blackguard. Which then I looked up, and it's spelled blackguard, which I've read before, and I'm like, oh.
And I've never pronounced it correctly.
Yeah. Interesting. I've actually probably never read that word out loud. I think.
Blackguard.
Blackguard. Oh, cool. They've got like shipping fan art between the two. That's perfect.
This game it's so shippable. Everyone shipped it.
Yeah.
It's great.
I love this game is very gay in all the right ways, I think.
It's incredible. Yeah, they really.
Everyone is gay for everybody else, regardless of gender. It's great.
Yeah, I think I romanced Dusa at some point. It's just all in there.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Hades. Hades is on my list too. So I think what that means is the cycle comes back to you.
I get to go again, double roll.
You get to go again, yes.
Well, most importantly, final verdict. Everyone should play Hades. It's freaking great.
Yeah.
All right. My second one won't be on your list because it is City Skylines.
I got it free on Epic Game Store during December.
I have this free on every store ever. It's been given to me so many times for so many.
Has it just been around for a long time? Is that the deal?
It's from like 2016 or 2014. Yeah, it's not.
Okay.
It's not new.
So at first glance,
Yeah.
one thinks, okay, this is SimCity.
SimCity.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, our comrade Alfred Twu had a thread today that made Hacker News about different city builders comparing this to SimCity.
Oh, interesting. Nice.
Yeah, and I think the critical difference is that it's like transit centric because it came from Finland instead of the U.S.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Yeah, so like you're actually like planning out like tram and subway, and
This is like a whole Clover on-ramp here.
yeah, they're really interested in getting people to places.
Yeah.
In a way that SimCity was about like optimizing zones in a way that I don't know.
I only ever played Sims. Well, I played 2 SimCities in my life. I played SimCity on the Super Nintendo,
Classic.
which was great.
That is great.
And it had all these modes where you could just destroy the city as well, which is, I think, a stroke of genius.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You could summon the Godzilla and all those things.
It's so brilliant that they actually made an expansion pack for it and charged people money for the feature, and I think sold a lot of them.
Yeah. And then I played some SimCity 2000, which was the PC sequel to SimCity.
Also classic.
And you had to like lay plumbing. It was actually quite a bit harder of a game.
Yep.
And I didn't get nearly as into it because it wasn't as approachable. I'm guessing this one seems even crunchier than SimCity.
It is. It has some like I had to like watch. It's one of those ones where I had to like watch a YouTube video to be like, how do you not fuck this up?
So the Bloodborne of city simulators.
Yeah, which was really helpful.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was like, well, so backstory is that this this was the free PS4 game in like May.
Okay.
Like beginning of the pandemic, we were all stuck at home. Nobody knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Do you want a really calm city builder?" And I was like, "I do." So this ate like May and June and July for me.
So how do you build such a complicated skyway like this? Do you literally have little segments of road that you can just throw in there?
Yeah, and it's got a very interesting sort of like like a spline based system where you click and drag and you can sort of define what type of curve you want it to make. You're like either
wow,
follow the
yeah.
cursor or like I'm gonna throw a vector out here and then a point over here and you're gonna just draw between them. It just does it is shockingly intuitive to do like cloverleafs like that. And you have
And
like
can you do? Does it prevent you from making physically impossible structures, or can you kind of make crazy highways if you wanted to?
it has like slope limits and
Okay, yeah,
but it also like kind of fudges the details where if you have like funky terrain and the simulation is okay with it, sometimes the road will like paint itself into a valley and out again in like a very improbable way, but like you're kind of just
Yeah.
like, well, we're in 3D land.
Well, I should play this game as the proud new owner of a free copy of it.
Yeah. When I really enjoyed it, especially when I didn't have a PC that could like run it, I was like PlayStation. Like
Yeah,
consistent performance. Like I know I can like get into this and not worry that like my thing is gonna crap out eventually.
yeah. If for nothing else, it just seems kind of like map porn. Do you know what I mean? Like I love maps and just like staring at them and kind of like, inventing random stories about little things that you notice on
Oh,
maps.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I was gonna see if I can find a picture of my city. Oh yeah, here you go. I'll send you one I made. I'll put this in our Slack.
Yeah.
I recently took the time to back up all my screenshots and captures off of the PS4. And now they're in my Photos app on my computer, and it's great. It's super convenient. Yeah, there you go.
Is this a statue of you, Dom? Right
Yeah.
here. That could almost be you.
That's me, the Colossus Guardian,
Yes.
Guardian City.
Nice. Cruise ship, excellent. You're sort of boosting the local tourism scene.
Yeah, and there's a little hotel district right by the cruise ship to keep folks happy.
Nice. Yeah. This is maybe a little bit of like New Orleans nostalgia going on here. Is
A
that
little bit, yeah. There's some canals going on. I definitely picked my waterfronts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Football stadium.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you got into SimCity, it really did it for me.
Nice. Well, I'd love to give it a shot. I mean, I think the other thing I think of, like, and I can't not think of when I hear about City Skylines is our friend Do Not Eat.
Oh,
I don't know how much of his stuff you watched.
I watched some of it. The Elon Musk video was really funny.
Yeah. So he's basically a leftist urban studies guy, probably in his mid to late 20s, but he sounds like he was 60 years old in 1970, right? He sounds like he has this otherworldly kind of like voice out of a different era of American history. Not an accent per se, because it's just a straight up American accent, but just his inflection and everything like that. And he has this very kind of like droll, deadpan way of talking about urban development and gentrification, all these different kinds of sort of like ways in which capitalism manifests itself in geography, right? Especially in the transformation of space. And he also just has incredible dunks on just
These videos were
everything.
really funny.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's got some great dunks on, especially this guy right here, Elon Musk, talking about the Hyperloop and what a bad idea it is.
It's such a bad idea. Oh my gosh. It's remarkable to me that people saw that and continue to take him seriously.
Yeah.
Because like 5 minutes of the video, I was like, oh yeah, this is much slower than a road because you can't get cars in and out of your fucking car elevator fast enough. Like, no shit.
Turns out it's a bad idea.
Yeah. But it's like a bad idea, but like now they're drilling tunnels. Oh, sorry. The tunnels are for their other subway system. The Hyperloop's just, who even knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah. The one thing that was amazing is when he talked about, he's like, you simply can't drive that quickly. Like, like you can't drive that fast and then turn successfully,
Basically, he should go to Mars as fast as possible, and I absolutely
Elon, yeah, he's got the money. He should go to Mars.
I support it 100%. I hope
Yeah.
SpaceX sends him there very soon.
Yeah.
All right,
Cool.
your turn.
My turn. I'm gonna cover one that I think is probably on both of our lists, which is the classic AAA of the year, I would say.
That is on my list. Yeah.
Ghost of Tsushima. What is with this autocomplete? Tsushima.
That's wow. You think that
Tsushima,
like
boys.
I feel like that's like DuckDuckGo really showing its
Wow, it
second
was
place to
Forbes Journal, random Forbes Journo's game of the year. There were some people who write for the Ringer also that thought it was the game of the year as well.
Google. I can understand that. It's certainly a better Assassin's Creed than Assassin's Creed.
Yes, in terms of game mechanics and
like a
there was-
story I cared about.
yeah. There's a tiny bit of jank in this game, but not as much as an Assassin's Creed game, right? Assassin's Creed games are kind of floaty. They're
Well, and I
So
feel like,
you play? Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say this. It had the thing that really sort of like when I was playing it made me think like it's just Assassin's Creed Japan is like you have the eagle vision mode where you see through walls and everything is red and blue.
Right.
It's like that. I feel like that is like maybe the distinctive feature.
I confess that I actually enjoyed Assassin's Creed Odyssey more than this game.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Was that this year or was that on your list?
Assassin's Creed Odyssey was long before. It was like a couple of years ago.
It was this year for me.
Okay, yeah. So you played AC Odyssey, but you got to play this next side by side, essentially, or more or less, with Ghost of Tsushima, and yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, I think just as like a combat simulator, it's like surprisingly good. It's like a notch or two below like a Soulsborne, but it's still pretty fun, right? To fight guys.
I really liked it. I thought the stances were a really cool way to put it together. It makes you feel cool, which is always like pretty key.
Yeah. It looked incredible. And I don't think I even realized it until I talked to other people about it, but some juju that they put in this game made it so that there's almost like no load time at all, right? It was just so fast.
I have a suspicion at the Juju.
Yes.
Everything is a shader.
Right.
Like I
So
don't
it's just code. Everything is procedurally generated on the fly.
Yeah, I don't think they modeled any of the trees or the bamboo or the leaves or grass.
So they're not spending a lot of time just loading geometry off the disk.
I think and you can see the load times when you want to like switch a single outfit for your character and it takes like 30 seconds. Which I don't know if you've noticed that, but it's totally wild.
Yeah. Ghost of Tsushima devs lengthened some load times because you couldn't read the tips in time. That is a flex.
It really was.
Game development right there. So you play this dude Jin, and you start the game, and the Mongols have invaded an island in the Sea of Japan, which is in between Korea and the mainland Japan. And the Mongols just basically kick everyone's ass.
Which
they, like,
importantly
murder
happened. Like this is all like history too.
Yeah, this is all fact. This actually happened. They just went back in time.
Yeah. Well, at least the
with
first
some
part
like
of it happened. I don't know about the
motion
rest
capture. And yeah, they got old Jin, who then like basically turns into a ninja and has to deal with the kind of emotional and spiritual fallout of changing the way that he lives his life, and also, more importantly, changing the way that he doles out violence upon the invaders of his home.
I thought it played up that sort of like conflict pretty well. But also I never felt I was never like, yeah, I should really do the honorable samurai thing and let the Mongols kill me. Like, never really crossed my mind. And like, clearly everyone
I think
else
this
is also
is
on
the
board.
fight where you fight Lady Masako here.
Oh yeah, that was great.
It's awesome. Who's your ally, by the way? But she's just on always on the rampage.
Oh, she's bad. Yeah, she cannot not kill people. It was great.
I have to admit that like the I don't know. I think it's the era of politics that we live in, but like I'm a little bit more on the ends justify the means side of the spectrum than the means are more important than anything else side of the spectrum. Because more often than not, people who occupy that side of the spectrum are not very cognizant of the means that they actually use to ensure their own position and their status quo, right? And so I could not really take Jin's uncle, who is this kind of like moral and philosophical foil in this game. I could not take him all that seriously because he was like, we must fight honorably, and you're a piece of shit for thinking otherwise. Even though you busted me out of prison and are the only reason why I'm alive, and the strategy that I am imploring you to use right now is what got all of you and your friends and their families friggin' butchered in the first place.
Yep.
He didn't really have a defensible position, and yet he was kind of cast as the kind of, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the game is trying to say about Lord Shimura, but I had a hard time taking him seriously.
Well, I guess he's backed by state violence, right? Like the shogun comes in with like more samurai, and they're like, "Hey, like samurai are still here."
Yeah, exactly.
So like basically, the cops show up, and you say, "Fuck the police."
Yeah.
Which is great.
Spoiler alert a little bit here, right? Because the way that the arc of the game goes is that eventually you end up like recruiting the mainland shogun to come and help. You don't really see them at all or anything like that.
Yeah,
you think you see one of the
they talk to you
generals?
once, yeah.
Yeah. But so continuing the spoiler alert, like you eventually have to fight Lord Shimura at the end, right? It's like basically the sort of last thing you do in the game really is like
it's your Luke Vader moment.
Sort of. Only nobody's a bad guy. I think Shimura just kind of forces the issue. He's like, look, my boss, some faceless dude who taxes me from afar, you know, like over an ocean, says that I have to kill you, and so I'm going to do it, even though you're my foster son. I don't know.
I liked that. I enjoyed that by the end he wasn't even willing to like look the other way. He wasn't like I get what you did. I'm gonna tell the shogun you're dead. Like I feel like there's the movie ending that every movie has, which is just like
that's true.
Yeah, like the movie ending is like, well, that really sucked and we can't talk anymore, but like I'm with you. But like I actually like felt sorry for him. That dude that dude was pained by the end, and like not in the normal like I don't know. I didn't play Last of Us 2 this year, but like games making you feel horrible for people doing horrible things, I was like, oh, that guy has an emotional conundrum.
Right. No, you're right. They had the courage of letting that character be himself rather than, you know, it's the classic just like let Han Solo die at the end of Empire Strikes Back. What's the problem with that, right? Yeah.
Spoiler.
Okay, so that's Ghost of Tsushima.
Really good. Bonus point. It's even better on PS5. Holy shit. It looks so good.
How about this? When I get my PS5, you and I will hop back on and actually play the multiplayer.
Oh, I would do some Legends, yeah, whenever you get that. Fuck yeah.
It's going to be 2024. The pandemic will be over, and I'll get my PS5.
I know. Sorry.
Just in time for the PS5 Slim.
It could not be any huger if it tried. It's horrible.
Yes. Yeah. You could probably just like take a screw off of the PS5 and it'd be the PS5 Slim at this point.
You can pop the white panels off. You can make it much smaller. They just like come off.
Would that not then like
I think it fucks up like
the amount of airflow?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
And it looks really ugly.
Yeah, part of me felt kind of I had the suspicion that the design was there to ensure that there was enough airflow, right?
Yeah, you can't, even if you put it in a completely enclosed space, like there is airflow, which honestly is like kind of clever design.
Yeah, I've got a very constrained IKEA TV entertainment center type thing. So
did you see that IKEA now has PS5 and Xboxes in? They have like cardboard models in the store that are like kind of IKEA-fied, so you can like stick it in and see if it fits.
Yeah, it's like their cardboard books.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
So that was Ghost of Tsushima. I don't know if that was on your list or not.
That was on my list. Yeah.
That was okay.
I think you get 2 in a row now.
Oh, so that comes around to me. Okay. I'm gonna go through all like the AAA stuff first, and then we'll get into kind of the interesting stuff after that. So next game for me is the classic Ubisoft looter shooter Division 2.
Oh yeah, you played a lot of that this year, didn't you?
I played a shitload of Division 2 this year. It is about a pandemic. It's about fascism. You kind of are the fascist.
I mean, like, you're the fascist in so many games.
It's true. Yeah, if you play Batman, you're the fascist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Division 2 Endgame? What Endgame? Like, basically to me, it was like endless, completely endless. Like you basically take over Washington, D.C., you take over all the key points in Washington, D.C., and then, like, another mercenary army rolls into D.C. and takes them over again, and you have to go through and take them out.
I think Endgame is everything after you finish the story.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Which is
but that's most of the game in
it's
Division
the whole
2.
game,
That's like literally most of the time that you spend in Division 2 is that.
Same for Destiny. It's like
Yes.
the end of the game is actually the whole game.
It's true.
Yeah.
That is true. Destiny is exactly like that. And this is basically Destiny. But
American.
yes, it's American. Destiny is pretty American, though. It feels pretty American. Yeah, to say that Destiny is Space Division is to give Division too much credit, because I think Destiny is ultimately a better game, but I had a lot of fun playing Division 2. I think it's really fun. Kind of weird in the sense that it's like realistically set, sort of. So like, how do you get a gun that was like 100 times more powerful than the gun that you started the game? That's just the way it goes.
Well, it's purple.
But it's not purple. That's the thing. It's like it looks exactly the same, only it was just like made slightly better than the last one.
Oh, sorry, the name is purple.
Oh, you're right. You're right. That is true.
I don't actually know if it is, but it's purple in every other game.
Yeah. What I love about Division in particular is that it's a cover shooter, and it does third-person mobility, which I always like better because I think it looks cooler, A, and then B, I also get motion sick when I play, fast twitch 3D first-person shooters.
That makes sense, yeah.
So like a Left 4 Dead, for example, I just can't do it. It's like way too fast and twitchy. But Division 2, you're really only in the first-person view when you're shooting, and so I never had that problem. Plus, I played it on the PS4, so I was sitting far back from the screen, all those things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Division 2. You play fascist, but the other guys are fucking assholes.
Don't you get to kill the president or something?
Do you kill the president? I mean, the president betrays you like almost immediately after you rescue him.
Okay, yeah. I think maybe that was it.
I don't know if you actually kill him though.
Maybe it's the Division 1. I forget which one of these games does that.
Yeah, there's that kind of thing here. You rescue him, and then of course he's like a bad guy.
I feel like the story in these games always reminds me of pro wrestling.
You know what? That's actually a pretty good enough.
Right? Like it's
Analysis,
like
yeah.
people walk in and then have like sudden betrayals while like smirking at the camera, and I'm like, fuck yeah.
Were you a pro wrestling fan?
No, but like I really enjoy sort of occasionally catching up on like what the hell happened.
Yeah.
I've been meaning during the pandemic to catch up on like the pro wrestling scene in Japan. Because I think it's just much more interesting than ours because they do weirder stuff.
Right.
And there's apparently like a decades long gay romance that's been going on there, like sort of under the covers or under the surface. That's just like, yeah,
Like it's like they're on the DL.
they're on the DL, but also it's a team up called the Golden Lovers, so like they're clearly not. But also they broke up.
It could be that they intend people to think that they're lovers in the.
It's there's like emotional subtext in that wrestling that is truly enjoyable.
Is this a white guy?
Yeah. He left America, joined the Japanese wrestling circuit, and then was like on this team, and then was a heel, and joined the Americans in Japan team, who are there to like show people how much better Americans are than Japanese.
The Golden Lovers and the Young Bucks.
Dude,
I actually think the Golden Lovers is the less gay name of those two, right?
I mean, the thing I love about wrestling is it is as homoerotic as football, but like they really lean into it.
They really, yeah.
They like
fantastic.
own the fact, and I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
do it. But anyway, like
Nice.
I feel this way about video game stories now. I'm just like, okay, cool. Like whatever you say, we'll do it.
Yeah. Okay, we should keep going just to keep up the pace.
Yeah, I'll give. I'll
because
give
we're
us
not
an
even
easy
halfway
one.
through.
Yeah, I'll give us an easy one.
Yeah.
Astro's Playroom. That shit was
Astro's Playroom. Yes.
truly, truly dope.
Okay. How is it not just like Super Mario Odyssey with a cool controller? Is that basically the idea?
It's basically that, yeah. It's like if Odyssey. What was the Mario 3D World? Was that one of them too, where you're like, it's a little more.
Mario Galaxy?
I thought there was one where you were like hopping into like suits or something. There's like different power ups that give Mario different level abilities. I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
There's a million Mario games, but
Yeah.
but it I don't know. It's like it was a really good Mario. This was a really good Mario game,
Okay.
which was delightful. Had like some fun exploration. It was short, which honestly is like starting to become a much bigger criteria for me.
Yeah.
And the controller stuff for this, like they kind of went to 11 instead of doing like it's here's how the controller works. They were like every step your character takes vibrates the controller a different way, and I was like, this is too much, but thank you.
Yeah. I know that like the content of the game is like kind of weird Sony. It's like Sony as Disney kind of thing where they throw back to a lot of old classic.
That's a great way to put it.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
Do you have to be a fan to enjoy it?
I don't think so, but there are like a bunch of little secrets.
Okay.
I didn't catch half the references. And
Right.
you are kind of rescuing like PlayStation hardware by going through it, but also like I don't know, you're just collecting things. It's fun to collect things. But what I thought was really cool was like they had a
There's
couple
coins here that he's picking. Oh, they are coins. They're
little
literally
coins, yeah, and you put them into a gotcha machine. Of course.
And there's the gotcha game inside of Asteroid.
There's a gotcha game inside of Astros, but thankfully you can buy out the gotcha machine, so you always get everything in it.
Nice.
But even the gotcha machine is like you pull a lever with the trigger,
Yeah.
and it like pulls halfway and squeaks and like has like a metallic like resistance, and you have to like pull through whatever lever mechanism it is. It just feels, it's like really cool. I hope people like use this as an example of like what you can do.
Yeah.
It's a lot of very clever interactions.
Yeah. I'm going to do 2 in a row real quick just because I think it segues nicely and
That's
they're
great.
related.
I got 2 in a row as well. So
Speaking of gotcha games inside of other games, one of the games on my list is Yakuza 0.
oh man, should I get Judgment, by the way?
Judgment is the second game of the series,
Yeah.
so you just wait and listen. So Yakuza 0, I actually didn't finish, so I kind of bounced off it. But I think these games are just really friggin' long, and Yakuza 0 in particular felt pretty draggy.
Okay.
So I think I made it through like the first 2.1 acts, and I was just like on the verge of making it to the final act of the game, and then I was just kind of like, I kind of get the point. Maybe I'll just pick this up on YouTube, There's a million games inside of the game. In particular, some gotcha stuff. Oh, come on, show me that their gotcha machines are so cool. Oh, there's also porn. You can watch porn.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there's like the porn booths that you literally go in, and
course. I'm not surprised by these games anymore because like they always have everything.
it's yeah. They have this great dance mini game. This dude Kiryu has really killer moves.
That was in I played Yakuza Kiwami, like Yakuza 1, I guess,
Yeah.
because I was like, I'll start at the beginning, and then realized that there was Yakuza 0, which comes before 1.
Best part about this game, well, it's really funny, and then it's got a sort of fully realized reproduction of Shinjuku, but it's not really Shinjuku because it's fake. They're probably for n number of different reasons, creatively and legally. They made their own kind of red light district of Shinjuku. The real life one is called Kabukicho, and this one was called Kamurocho, but there's the same kind of idea, sort of the seedy underbelly of modern Japan, ruled by mafia dudes and street justice. And you play this total mensch of a guy, of a Yakuza dude called Kiryu. It was great.
I mean, not having played Zero, but
Yep.
my favorite thing about Yakuza was like you're a mobster. You're like punching people to like pay their whatever money they owe the mob, and you're also like saving people. You're like holding umbrellas for people on the street. You're doing like incredibly sweet, silly tasks because you're just like the nicest person in the world.
Yes.
You know what? You know what it is? It's like it's the Ghost of Tsushima. You have an honor code, and you're like I'll punch a mobster, but otherwise, like I gotta be a good guy.
It's very much this is Ghost of Tsushima in the modern day, right? You are a samurai, and you do basically collect the surplus from the people in a way that is not really, you're not really actually entitled to that. But at the same time, you're a great spokesperson and serviceman or service person to your community. However, I did not think that Yakuza 0 was as good as the other game I'm about to talk about, which is Judgment, which I even forgot I played this year because it felt like so long ago, but I looked it up and I actually bought it just before Christmas in 2019, which means I played most of it.
That counts.
This year. Judgment, you play this dude, Yagami, who's not a Yakuza. He was buddies with Yakuza people growing up. I think he was like his mentor was like a Yakuza like mobster chieftain guy. But he's actually a ex-lawyer fallen from grace and is now a private detective and is also a master of Chinese kung fu, like you do.
Of course, obviously. Is he like does he do the same stuff as Kiryu where he has like
it's exactly the same.
Great.
Yeah, he kind of goes around, he kind of helps people out. What I really enjoyed about this game has like a lot of bullshit in it, but I realized as I look over like the list of games, I'm actually really willing to like deal with bullshit in games as long as there's just something redeeming about it. For example, this scene right here, there's like this tailing mechanic in this game where it's just bad stealth where you have to like follow an NPC and they'll just like randomly turn around. Ghost of Tsushima had that a bit, right? Right.
It did, but there was always a very convenient path of grass.
Yeah, there was always like a cliff that you could kind of like duck down under a hedge and then just sort of like move forward. In Judgment, you have these like beer sandwich boards, and it was awful. And there's a lot of kind of bullshit stuff like that, but I think the voice acting is actually really, really good. The English dub is fantastic.
Really? I never play these with the English dub. Is it actually worth it?
You got to play with the English dub. And in fact, like the thing about like video games is you can actually synchronize the lips if the budget is good enough. You won't get flappy lips, and so it has that over like anime and film as well.
That's fair.
And I thought it was excellent. I thought the storyline was like outrageous, but like a great kind of like ridiculous noir thriller with like, what are seemingly kind of like almost pedestrian murders in an alleyway, but it's connected to the halls of power all the way up to the top, that sort of thing.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah. So I can't recommend this game more strongly. I really, really enjoyed it.
Damn. All right. Yeah. Also, every time
this might have been my number one game of the year, actually. I think I liked it more than Hades.
All right.
Yeah.
That's very strong.
Even though I didn't like the combat, I didn't like the stealth scenes. I didn't like any of the gameplay, really. But like I thought, again, like I'm willing to deal with a lot.
I feel like this is it's like an interesting twist on the JRPG where it's like you're kind of doing everything to get to the next scene.
Yes. Yeah.
But it hasn't really it gives you like a little more freedom and fun than like menus.
Yeah.
And like a lot more freedom and fun actually, because I loved Yakuza.
Yeah. Okay. So those are my two in a row. Back to you.
All right. My two in a row are also related because it is Control, which I played in 2020, and Alan Wake, which I actually played all of before I could finish Control.
And you're the one that actually told me that these two are actually very similar in feel and in tone. Right?
Oh man, extremely. And like, did you play Max Payne at some point in the past ever?
I did not. I mean, aware of it.
Okay.
Alan Wake really likes flashlights.
So,
That's what I'm learning about this guy.
well, the entire game is in the dark,
Okay.
which is delightful. But yeah, so like to me they're like very clearly like the same. They feel like two books by the same person in a very fun way. But yeah, in Alan Wake you go around.
Yeah, this character here seems very Control, right? Supernatural dude in a G-Man suit, sort of.
Well, and spoilers, but by the very end of Control's final like chapter, Alan Wake turns out to be the person writing the story of Control.
Oh, is he a journalist? Is that the deal?
No, he's like this Stephen King pastiche who's like kind of like a trashy horror writer.
Right.
And he's just like a trashy novel writer in general. His first novel turns out to look a lot like Max Payne. And he like in this game he steps away. He needs like new creative inspiration, so he goes to a town that looks remarkably like Twin Peaks, where there's like a log lady and a diner, and like everyone's a little weird.
Yeah.
And it turns out there's a dark supernatural presence inhabiting the town that everyone is sort of aware of and controlled by.
Oh, so is this like super Twin Peaksy?
Extremely Twin Peaks.
Does he drink a cup of coffee in a diner?
Yeah, actually, one of the two collectibles in this game are manuscript pages that like give you a voiceover and like some of the story, and coffee thermoses, of which there are 100 to find. Like you're always looking for more coffee.
Damn good coffee.
Damn good coffee.
Yeah. All right. So Control is basically the spiritual sequel then.
I
if
think
not
so.
the direct sequel. Yeah.
It's the first. It's like part of the cinematic universe of Alan Wake, or vice versa.
But there's not like this crazy shit going on in Alan Wake, right? Like there's not telekinesis and floating, right?
The bad guys are. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because it's all in the dark, and you're fighting these like shadow monsters who are flying, but you have to like aim the flashlight at them to break through evil. I don't know. It's a Xbox 360 game. It only has so much to it.
Yeah. Oh.
But it's pretty bonkers in the same way that I think Control is pretty bonkers.
And you played Alan Wake on Xbox 360 again, or did you get it for PlayStation?
It turns out it was given to me free on Steam and Epic and something else.
Okay. Another game that you kind of just realized you had.
Yeah.
On PC.
When like it's a little scary, and I was like, I kind of avoided like the scary game for a while. There's like a lot of shit jumping out at you. Things creep up behind you in your headphones. Honestly, it's like I wish Control had been Alan Wake scary. I assume the next one might be.
Right.
But Alan Wake was great. Control was probably my game of the year. I know it didn't quite grab you the same way, but like I don't know. And I love third-person story games, and like the weird X-Files, supernatural, like deep conspiracy stuff going on in here was just so much fun to play with. Like I really dug into the lore and found all the pages of like weird shit going down and did a bunch of side quests. This game just was so much fun for me.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should go back and give it a shot in the spirit of like I actually kind of looked over the list of games. Like I think I bought more video games than I ever have in 2020 than probably it's like a couple years worth of video games, 2 or 3 years worth of video games that I bought. I think probably just for reasons of cabin fever and retail therapy or whatever. And yet at the same time, like I think the problem with abundance is that your patience is thin and you bounce off of stuff. You don't cherish it as much. And Control is unfortunately, I think, a victim of that a little bit, where it just didn't grab me right away. I was also playing on PS4. Maybe I should try it on PC and see if that's a little bit of a better experience.
You might want to, yeah. I think I switched to a Pro sometime halfway through, and it got a lot better actually.
Oh, you have a Pro? I didn't know that. Okay,
I did, yeah. For this and another game that just were really doing badly on my PS4.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, just the atmosphere and the movement and the fun of being this character really did it for me.
Did this come out last year or the year before?
It must have been the year before, but I played it last year.
Okay, because like last year, I felt like the game that like, because like Control, I remember it being like everyone's like, this is by far the best game of the year, and it felt like Disco Elysium was also that for other people, but and then Hades is that this year, but like. but I actually think both Control and Disco Elysium came out last year. But I don't remember.
I think that's right. Really,
Yeah.
it was just like I saw that and I was like, oh, like end of 2019, I was like, oh, I should really play that one.
Yeah. Cool. Alan Wake, Control, awesome.
Yeah, I mean everything Remedy does. Maybe I'm just a fan.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna round out. This is not quite AAA, but this is a game that I think it's AAA adjacent. As I look over my list, sadly, it is the one PC game that made it onto my list.
Okay.
After I triumphantly bought my first gaming PC in like 15 years. I didn't actually play that many games on it.
This thing is for the stream for me.
It's warming up. We'll play Manchester. Yeah. It's partly that because we thought getting more hardware for the stream would be a good thing. But that game is Remnant from the Ashes. Remnant : from the Ashes.
Isn't this we could have played this on PS4 if we wanted to.
We could have played this on PS4 if we wanted to, but instead I paid actually full price for the Steam version of this game. We were looking for a multiplayer co-op game to play.
Oh, that fucking dragon. Ugh.
Oh, this one. Yeah. Well, we played it on the difficulty level above the first one, and it just totally savaged us. I was genuinely surprised by this game. I honestly thought I was going to bounce off of it a little bit. I also didn't think that, for example, I played it with my brother. My brother and I played Division together, but Remnant is a little crunchier than Division. Division's kind of like, it's Destiny. It's very breezy and entertaining. Remnant, on the other hand, it got described as being like a Soulsborne with guns. I don't think it's that hard. I think, Souls games are just like annoying, and Remnant is like, okay, after 4 or 5 times I can pretty much figure out this boss. Except for those 2 mosquito guys on either side of that wooden bridge.
Yeah, I think the thing it lacked. I mean, a lot of things can be Soulsborne-y, but to me, what it lacked in that department was just like the finesse and the fairness. I think in some ways it just kind of like threw some weird mechanics at the wall, and it was like, this one's gonna be harder.
Yeah, it felt maybe a little bit cheaper, and I don't think that the world building was as good.
But it tried. Although, it was like similarly inscrutable. Yeah,
it was similarly inscrutable. It just didn't quite have. It had the ambitions, but not quite the talent. But the game felt really good.
It was really fun.
The gun feel and the combat feel are as good as any game that I've played, and it actually kind of ruined other games for me. After we played through Remnant from the Ashes, me and my brother and my brother-in-law were looking for another co-op shooter, and we got this game called Strange Brigade, which is like this kind of sort of Indiana Jones type thing where you're kind of like these pyramid raiders, but you shoot zombies.
That sounds great.
It was an incredible drop off in terms of game feel, coming from Remnant from the Ashes. We probably would have enjoyed it a lot more had we reversed the order,
Damn, because that sounds fun.
But Remnant is like sneakily like everybody's played it. It's one of those games that like nobody talks about really in I would say games media in general. But like I remember when I was playing it, I got my carpet cleaned or my rug cleaned during that, and the guy who came over to clean the rug, he saw that I had my PC set up, and he's like, "Oh, that's a cool rig. What are you playing lately?" And I said, "Well, I'm playing this game called Remnant from the Ashes." He's like, "No way, man! I'm playing that right now. I'm playing it on hard with my friends."
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Did you see that the sequel came out to it like last month?
I saw that the sort of prequel remake came out because they had like another game called something before the Ashes, right? Like
I don't like, man, these names.
Their world building lacks something. But I guess it was a VR game.
Is that what happened?
A lot of the models and enemies are actually like exactly the same as what are in Remnant from the Ashes. So they're doing a lot of content recycling, I think.
Gotcha. I mean, like, Yakuza does too, but it's like part of the charm.
Yeah, I think Remnant actually it has the vibe of a game from a studio that is punching way above its weight class. Is the impression that I get.
I think that's
Even
right.
though I'm not sure if that's true. I actually think that like the people that made this game, what did they make? You knew the game that they made before, right?
Was it Darksiders?
Darksiders, yes.
Yeah, which like also I think hits the same. It's the same thing. Like
Yeah.
it's like a very competent double A. Double
Yeah,
A and a half.
yeah. That's a great way of putting it. This is like a double A plus. It was very much an overachieving double A game. But you know, like you could tell that they were taking a lot of expediencies. Like it was procedurally generated. There's a lot of repeat stuff. A lot of jumping back to the same areas. Still though, I thought it was like I was actually shocked at how much I enjoyed this game. Well worth the $40, I think.
I paid $0 for it, and that was also really great.
How much money did you actually pay for all of these games that are your top 10?
Let's
Well, how many were free?
only
A lot of them, right?
Yeah, cities. This one's not in my top 10, but I paid for everything but cities on this list pretty much. Well, Astros, I guess that was $0 for everyone.
Yeah. You did buy Alan Wake originally, and then you had it for free at some point.
Oh, that was also free. Yeah, totally.
Okay. All right. Back to you.
Okay. Let's see. We're at the hour. Do you want to do one more each?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Because I want to rate some shaders too.
Yeah.
All right. To pick a final one though, I'm actually going to go with Subnautica.
Ooh.
Yeah, which definitely much before this year.
Yeah, but you played it last year, which is totally what counts.
And like I was watching my
I'm
partner
a
play
fan
it.
of this guy right here.
Yeah, I was watching my partner play it because I am just terrified of the ocean, and I like tried to play it and got really scared, because there's like fish and they attack you. But like I
That
definitely
sounds like my worst nightmare actually, because I'm pretty scared of the ocean as well.
yeah, just like click through some of this shit. It's terrible. But like I actually watched like a lot of this game. Like I see that. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you want a crab squid? That's a fucking crab squid.
Yeah.
It's no good.
I don't want a crab squid. Thank you very much. I'm going to click off this image. And instead, there's this horrible thing.
Oh, those are friendly. They're cool. They're chill.
They don't look very friendly.
That's fair. It's because it's the ocean. Nothing is friendly. The ocean is terrible.
That's true.
Can you look for the Leviathan Look for Subnautica Reaper if you want to see a scary thing.
Ooh. Ah, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Early development build. Oh, so do you get a little submarine to ride around in, or are you basically naked?
No. Well, you start off naked. It kind of has a
Minecraft kind of thing?
Yeah, it has like a Minecraft No Man's Sky, like you crash land on an ocean world. Gotta get out.
Gosh, is this like a ton of them?
Yeah, I think someone's fucking with the debug console.
Oh, that looks horrible.
Yeah. These are all, I mean, it's the worst creature in video games as far as I'm concerned. Until you like stop being scared of it, but
Okay. So do you fight these things? Is Subnautica a combat game?
no, you can only run or like sneak around them basically. I think you can maybe stun it if you're lucky.
Yeah. You don't look particularly capable of fighting this guy.
No, not at all. And there's bigger ones. That's actually not the biggest guy. There's bigger, angrier fish in the sea.
Look at this. That's horrible. The color scheme also is not great, right? That actually is part of it as well. It's kind of
Like that thing does not make you want to be near it. No.
No, it doesn't.
But anyway, no, I like kind of watched a lot of this game during the pandemic, and it was just truly enjoyable.
Oh, the water looks really good.
You can go to other screenshots if you want to stop looking at this like butt chin Reaper. But no,
Let's
it's
go
like
back to something peaceful.
yeah, it's
Oh, this guy right here. Yeah, he's like kind of a friendly, goofy whale with a horrible, gross back.
that's not even in the game. I don't know what that shit is.
Oh, just made a creature concept inspired my favorite game, Subnautica. Look at that. It's Subnautica love. That's what this is.
I think there is reasonably a lot of Subnautica love because
Okay.
it's like it's just got like a cool, like you get tossed in the ocean, you have to figure out where everything is. It's totally like you get like a compass but never a map, so you have to kind of like set your landmarks.
Love it.
It was really cool. It had a really good loop, and I'm really glad I wasn't the one playing it.
Yeah.
but definitely like one of my important 2020 games.
Yeah. Okay. I have
bring
some
us home.
games. Yeah, I have some games on the list that are stuff that we've talked about before. The one game that I think I haven't talked about yet
Oh,
Coffee Talk.
did you play this?
Yes. This is not.
None of that is the thing.
No. Although there is a lot of those pictures in Coffee Talk. You do actually make coffee. Um, you play a barista that owns their own coffee shop in futuristic Seattle, and there is actually like a drink making mechanic where somebody asks you for a drink. You know, it's like something with milk, make it sweet, or I don't like this stuff, but make it like this, and you kind of just have to figure out what they want.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's honestly a little bit of a clunky mechanic where certain combinations of ingredients will create certain drinks that are sort of pre-programmed and have a name. So like if you put some ingredients you put together and it'll just be like a cinnamon lemon tea. You know, it would like literally be just like the combination of ingredient names. But other times it'll be an actual like real drink. And you know, the more accurately you prepare your drink for somebody, the more forthcoming they will be, because they're coming to this coffee shop. It's 24-hour coffee shops. Like they're coming to like basically like unload their burdens onto the barista. So you're basically a bartender.
You're a bartender.
Right?
That's great.
And the game takes place over like a calendar month or a couple of months or something like that. And every single day is basically a fixed dialogue tree. So there's not a whole lot of replay value, although like you can screw up the orders and you kind of just have to figure out what the recipes are over time. But every single character has their own little story to tell, and a lot of times they have relationships with each other. Like I think these two are a couple together, and then yeah, these two are a couple who are having issues. Like and like, she's afraid that his family won't accept her because she's a succubus. You know, like there's a lot of kind of like Romeo and Juliet type stuff going on.
Now, are these characters actual like fantasy creatures, or is it future Seattle and everyone just cyberpunks their way into?
No, they're actually fantasy creatures.
Cool, hell yeah.
It does actually share a conceit with the unfortunate movie Bright, that Netflix movie.
No.
Where it's kind of like realistic, real world, but with kind of like classic Tolkien-esque fantasy creatures, right?
Okay, you know what? That's kind of great. I like that.
Yeah, but it is cyberpunk-ish because it is in the future, and like they're kind of like technology themes as well.
Interesting.
There's also kind of like a weird sort of spoiler alert, sort of weird kind of time travel type subplot involving this character here.
Okay.
I never quite figured out who he was, and it was also related to. They made some conceit about how you can actually play the game multiple times in a row. Like there's something mysterious and unexplained about the main character that you're playing.
Cool.
He has no name, or they have no name. You're just the barista.
Now, did you play Valhalla?
Assassin's Creed?
No, VALHA11A.
You know, I had heard about this. Is it? You are a bartender in that game, right?
It's a cyberpunk bartending simulation. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do wonder if it's made by. I mean, it seems quite similar, doesn't it?
I think they're totally unrelated, though.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just curious if you'd managed to, if you'd played both, or if you had a.
I don't know. This seems right up my alley, though.
Yeah.
Wow. This abandons the game really quickly. Wow. But the first row here is on point, right? These are okay.
Yeah, probably a better cyberpunk game than 2077. So.
Yeah.
Speaking of notable.
Right. None of us really picked the big games of the year, right? There's a lot of shit that came across. we had Fall Guys and Among Us, and
I had Fall Guys on my list. I had a lot of fun with that one.
oh, okay, I never played Fall Guys actually. I have it
It
for PS4, but
I
I got it for free.
it's worth it for free.
Okay.
Yeah, it's. I mean, like, I'm kind of sick of battle royale shooters, so it was a very fun battle royale. Have funner.
Wait, what battle royale shooters did you play?
I've tried Fortnite and PUBG. They're both kind of like,
Okay.
I don't know. I'm tired of getting schooled by 13-year-olds.
See, I'm curious about Fortnite because I actually think it's similar to Bolo in the sense that you're sort of like an individual person that can run around and shoot things, but also you have a little bit of like creation capability, right?
I would squad up for some Fortnite with you and your brother-in-law and your brother.
Okay.
That would be fun.
Yeah, for research purposes, of course.
Going in with a team is much better than going in and having 13-year-olds shout at you on the microphone. It's definitely like one of those things where I'm like,
Yep.
I'm too old for this game, or just like not cool enough. But it's like kind of fun.
Yeah, I've heard it's chill too. Like it's not the stressful kind of like get sniped from somebody you don't even see kind of thing that you normally experience.
Yeah, and there's like a respawn mechanic. Like I think there's like you can do a battle royale with like a couple lives, which is cool.
Okay.
Yeah, unlike PUBG, which is just hot garbage. It's like you die once, then you spend 30 minutes queuing up for another game.
Right. The battle royale game ish that my brother and brother-in-law are really into is Escape from Tarkov. Have you heard about this one?
I have. It's pretty PUBG adjacent, right?
PUBG adjacent. It's extremely crunchy for one of those games. Like, I think you like if you get shot, you start to bleed, or it's like one of those kinds of things where it's just like everything just goes from like bad to worse.
No way, dude.
And the rich get richer, sort of thing. But people really like it.
That's funny. No, I am not into that.
Yeah.
The Microsoft Flight Simulator of Battle Royale.
Yeah. Okay, we've got about 45 minutes, a little over that, to change gears and actually do something productive.
It was fun making this list, though.
Yeah, it was good to kind of looking back at stuff. Let me just check to see if things are going. It looks like my cloud instance is going, which is great. I thought this broke for a second. I was really upset, but then I realized I just didn't add my SSH key to the keychain.
Oh, phew. Okay.
Or to the agent rather, so it still works, which is great because I just wrote a whole article about it. Hopefully, we can get that online Thursday. We can post it on Reddit and see what happens. It's all part of our nefarious marketing scheme to get more people.
I think we're doing pretty good. I see more followers every now and then.
Yeah. It's 2021.
It's 2020. Oof. It sure is. Man, every time I see the year, I'm
the
just
year
like,
of Jeff and Dom.
It is the year of Jeff and Dom.
And also the mutated COVID strain.
Dude, man, nobody would have written that bullshit. It's like too improbably dumb. I'm really upset.
The mutated strain or the fact that we can't get the vaccine out?
The mutated strain. The vaccine, I'm not surprised by.
Okay.
But the fact that it's like, we've got a vaccine, and then like concurrently they're like, by the way, don't forget about super COVID. Like, get out of here.
It's only fair that because we were able to get the vaccine out so quickly that COVID was also like, well, yeah, I'll raise you 50% more infectiousness.
I hate it so much.
I hate it too. Okay, so maybe we can talk a bit about exactly what we would like to accomplish today.
Yeah.
In our scant time remaining. I'm gonna turn the game on real quick.
Let's see what we got.
Yeah.
Did you like the new turrets, by the way?
I do. I love that we've got all these free models in the game now. They're all the same color, unfortunately. But maybe we can do something about that.
Yeah, I think I have one thought for that at least.
Okay. Wonderful.
Put some textures in there.
Open a folder. Data Manchester.
Nice.
That's the one. And we are almost off at the races. But I, in my infinite wisdom, renamed our default branch. So I need to make sure I get that. And I'm getting rid of the old default branch.
Brilliant.
Later. All right. So if I were to run the game now, hopefully it's just straight up work.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, I forgot. It doesn't work because it's actually doing the wrong thing here.
Oh.
I have too many toys. Here. I need to figure this one out. I kind of don't like. Can't find ES build. You know what it is? I just didn't run.
Got a yarn? Yeah. That checks out.
I'm so happy about ES build. By the way, I was just like, I was writing about it in the early.
Fuck?
Yeah, it's just. Here's some free money from this guy. He just handed it to us.
I'm so shocked and like a little angry, but also just like really happy. I
still can't find ES build. What is that? Is that because I'm running in Linux? Is that the deal?
Oh, I mean, did you
It feels like this should have figured this out, right?
Yeah, after you did that yarn, that seems pretty reasonable.
Oh, there is an issue.
Oh well, this is node 10 on the server. That's pretty old.
Oh. I'm just using the node that came with Ubuntu.
Okay.
So I think that needs to improve maybe.
That's
I'll tell you what. Let's not run this in the cloud then. Let's just run it locally.
All right. Yeah, that's too bad. But your build's still going to be blazing fast, so...
It still is going to be blazing fast. It's just that I always worry about Zoom taking up everything else. All right, VS Code.
it is very upset when you do it that way.
Yeah, there's some kinks to work out with this particular workflow, but I think it's the way of the future. All right, let's try this one more time. We'll see if I can redeem myself here. Slightly pokier, but look how fast that build is. Incredible.
Dude, come on.
And now at least this works.
Nice.
All right. Let's get that a little bit bigger. Nice. Look at these cool turrets. Oh man, 15 FPS.
Yeah, it's not the best I've seen. That's too bad. I think if you turn off debug, you'll probably get some frames back, but
oh yeah, it's quite a bit snappier. Mm-hmm. And this, God, I actually kind of like these triangular shots.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and the turret turns to follow you. There's some good stuff going on in here.
This is great.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the fact that the turret turns.
Yeah.
And it turns relative to the body of the tank.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Oh man. This is exactly the same game that we had before and yet completely different.
Darn tootin'.
Yeah.
So so we do have a bunch of blue models, which
yeah, they can only be blue. In fact, I think I said it right here. They can only be blue because of this line of code right here.
That is correct.
So I was thinking, we have a limited amount of time, at least for today. But we've also talked a lot about doing wireframe shading.
Yeah.
And I thought perhaps we could talk a little bit about what's involved with doing wireframe shading.
I'm very curious. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, is wireframe shading? Is it shading the edges of triangles, or is it actually applying I saw one of the wireframe shaders you sent was actually painting a pretty interesting texture onto the model that wasn't necessarily vertex based.
Interesting.
Do you have the last link you sent? It was the one you sent me about wireframe shading.
Left.
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Yes, there's no texture on this one, but we can talk about this in a second. This is actually a little bit more advanced, but let me get to that.
Okay.
What I would like to start with is kind of different techniques for doing this. I actually think that there might be GL polygon mode. Is that WebGL polygon mode?
Whoa, that'd be cool.
This is just come straight out of the box. I don't know if WebGL has this, but any GL polygon mode alternative for OpenGL. Yeah, GL fill is the only polygon mode, but there's like a GL lines polygon mode where you can essentially just draw polygons as lines. That would seemingly get you what you wanted right out of the box.
So would we basically draw? Would we draw the model in black and then draw lines on top of it, or would it be
Yes.
transparent? Like, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it kind of either way, right? Depending on what you wanted to do. So let's see. If like when we talk about wireframe, there's like actually a lot of subtle differences between what we mean by wireframe. There is the wireframe that is present in Manchester. So let me actually run that again. There's the wireframe of this cube, right? And this wireframe probably isn't what we're going to want to do for everything.
No, I feel like that's very. That really reminds me of Spectre. That's like the objects are just lines wandering around on a plane.
Yeah, I think it's actually a little bit more than that, because.
Oh, yeah,
well,
Spectre even has shaded
this
faces.
one right
Never
here.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So this cube here has two things going on with it. One is that its faces are transparent. And two, you can actually see the stuff. You can see its back surfaces as well. So not only can you see other things through the faces of it, you can see itself through its faces. And that is actually not true in Spectre, right? Like this here, it's not showing you the back geometry here.
That's
Your
a great
brain kind of
point.
fills in
Yeah.
the shape.
Yeah.
Battle Zone, on the other hand, is that what this is?
Oh, is that what I'm thinking of? Yeah.
Battle Zone, on the other hand, is basically like everything is transparent. Literally, it's as if this object was made of piping, right? So that's one challenge I think to deal with when we're talking about wireframe rendering. The other challenge that I think about is that neither this cube nor Battle Zone here. I think this is Tesla's. This is Battle Zone for sure. Suffer from this, but the primitives that OpenGL deals with are triangles and not polygons. So not like these trapezoidal looking things. They're just triangles.
Right.
But what we're not seeing here is like a diagonal line, kind of connecting those two things there. And so if OpenGL only deals with triangles, how does it know how to remove that diagonal line? So those are kind of like our two challenges when we think about, well, I think there's another third one, which we'll talk about in a second, but the two that I just talked about are basically like have to do with the fact that we're not generating solid faces, and we're also drawing things that maybe aren't necessarily representative of the true primitive that the graphics API is working with. The third thing is that in general, when we talk about wireframe, we're only talking about colors on the edges. That's what the frame is. And so when we think about the classical way of drawing things with textures or vertex colors, we're filling in the middles. And in fact, with textures, it's like we're literally just like taking a decal and like slapping it on there. And it's not really clear whether or not the wireframe is actually a decal and whether that's easy to express as a decal. In particular, as a decal gets farther and farther away from the camera, it kind of becomes mush. Right? And you would think that something that was a thick line on the decal close up would be a very thin line far away. But a big part of the wireframe aesthetic is that all the lines are exactly the same thickness, regardless of how close or far they are.
Oh, interesting. Yep. Right. The object actually like kind of like collapses on itself instead of the texture shrinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is this?
Whoa.
Using this console may allow attackers to impersonate you and steal your information. Do not enter or paste code that you do not understand.
Is gstatic.com Are you getting like Google CDN in your debug output? Yeah, that totally goes to Google.
Oh, you know what? That's totally what it is because I'm in a debug window right now.
Yep.
It's because I was Googling stuff. Let that be a lesson to us. Never Google anything.
Never Google anything. Hey, props to Google employees for trying to form a union today. That's pretty dope.
Oh yeah, I think it was just the contractors, but hey, that is great.
Oh, today?
Yes.
I thought it was actually programmers.
Oh really? It was actually the.
I better read up on it. Yeah, 400 Google engineers and other workers. So I think they're trying to do not just like the kitchen staff or the cleaning staff, but actually like a Google workers.
Okay,
union.
that is great.
Yeah, it's a big difference over the last one.
Yeah. How do I run this thing? I think it's parcel. So I think I've shown this demo before. I think way back before we were even doing Manchester. This is the game that
yes.
maybe, or this is the demo that I originally maybe wanted to work on the aesthetic in the first place. So this was my like kind of an early attempt at doing a wireframe shader.
Yeah.
And right now there's a lot going on where these objects are just kind of like translating and rotating very periodically. But as you can tell, we actually don't have the two or three problems that I was talking about before. These are opaque faces. You're not seeing the back sides of the objects, nor you could kind of see this dodecahedron or the X-wing kind of covering up the dodecahedron. You're not seeing stuff from behind the models, right? They are actually kind of like filling in the Z buffer completely.
Yeah, and I'm cloning this project now too. Is this slow or is it just zoom?
It's animating relatively slowly.
Okay.
But but it is smooth.
Okay, cool.
Coming in through here. I think maybe zoom coming through my computer is just going to be a little bit garbage.
Yeah, I want to run it myself so I can like sort of experience this sucker.
Yes. Right. So you just do parcel index.html. It's quite an old parcel project.
Sweet.
So the way that this works, and it's not necessarily the way that I would suggest we do Manchester, even if like assuming that this is the aesthetic that we want or something similar to it. I think with Manchester it'd be fine to do different colors than just green. But this is just kind of like I was thinking in particular of the old. Did you ever play the Star Wars arcade game where you're basically just doing the Death Star attack?
Absolutely.
That's kind of like what I had in mind.
Yeah.
So the way that this is put together, let's actually take a look at the code.
And this is WebGL.
This is WebGL.
Cool.
Yeah. This is going to be slightly embarrassing for me to look at this code just because I think it's got some patterns in there that I'm not a huge fan of. But bear with me here as I kind of refresh my own memory about the way that the renderer works. There's some things that are kind of familiar to us. We've got a renderable here. What is a renderable? A renderable is basically its position, and then a mesh ID, a mesh that was loaded in there. So it's actually not too dissimilar.
I was going to say, this is actually looking very similar. I noticed that your mesh had vertex indices and line indices, which makes me think that it's choosing to draw lines as a separate set of using GL lines. Yeah.
Super perceptive. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
you gotta keep me around for something.
Yes. A mesh here has vertices, and that's just your attribute buffer of positions. But then it has two index buffers, two different ones. So you're making two different draw elements calls. One with the triangle indexes and one with the line indexes. And it's actually, I believe, two different shaders. Or the same shader, but with different render properties. So let's actually take a look at what's different about those two.
This runs super smooth. I'm seeing this now. This is great.
Cool. Yeah. There's also a little bit of motion that you can do. There's WASD and the arrow keys for, I believe, roll and...
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, pitching up. And then Q and E to move up and down. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, basically, from what we know now, this is actually everything that we've talked about on the stream will allow us to explain what's going on here. So, okay, we'll put together some shaders. Let's actually look at the rendering. Clear the canvas, clear the color bit, and the depth buffer. We set up our matrices, and then we do a render pass that only draws to the depth buffer. So this color mask here basically disables drawing into the color buffer.
Oh, how clever. Okay.
But it actually draws into the depth buffer. Right. So what we do here is we literally just call, we set our uniform and we bind the VAO for whatever model we're currently on. And we call it draw elements. And here we're drawing as triangles. So we're using the index buffer that's for the triangle indexes. And so what this is going to do is it's not going to affect visually the frame buffer at all. But the depth buffer now has depth information in it for all of the faces, right? So it's basically filling in all the depth information for all of the different faces of the objects.
Well, and as the renderer or as the graphics card sees it, it sees vertices, right? So it sort of has depth information for points, which means that if you go back and render lines, it actually knows which vertices are behind other faces.
Correct.
Because it doesn't know about triangles necessarily, but just point values.
Yeah, all of the kind of the fact that these appear to be opaque and the fact that the draw ordering looks correctly, that's all an artifact of what's going on in the depth buffer.
That's really clever. Cool.
Yeah, so we're basically just filling a depth buffer with depth information without affecting the color buffer at all.
Boy, I think you showed me this when we started, and I was like, this is really weird. I don't understand any of this. Now I'm just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Great.
Yeah.
Damn. All right.
So the next thing that's happening here is that we go to a different color pass and we turn the color buffer back on, basically. But then we also change the depth function. And this is actually something that we did with debug draw in Manchester as well, where we said the depth function is basically going to allow pixels to be drawn if the depth value is less than or equal to what's already in the depth buffer. And the reason why we changed that depth function for this is that we've already drawn values into the depth buffer. And a lot of these line segments are going to have the exact same depth value as the faces that they circumscribe, right? But we still want them to be able to draw. So here, we just iterate over the same list of models, or meshes rather, set our uniform, bind the VAO, but this time with the draw elements call that we uses lines instead. And it uses this new line index buffer.
Right.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Do lines have a thickness in GL?
They do not in OpenGL. I think 1 pixel is all you got. So you've actually immediately pointed out one of the disadvantages of this technique. Right.
Okay, cool.
So other disadvantages. Where the hell did this come from? Right. When we use Blender, we exported our model in GLTF. We got index buffers, but if you remember, the GLTF format has 1 index buffer per mesh.
Yep.
And that's for triangles.
Yep.
So where did this come from? Basically, it came from processing the assets. And so, hang on, I'm going to switch over to the whiteboard in a second.
Okay. So do you have to do it when you on load, or is it actually pre-processing, you went and fussed with every model?
I didn't do it manually.
Okay.
But I did pre-process.
Okay.
Right. So there's a tool in here called STL to mesh. STL is a different format than OBJ, but it's a similar idea. Let's see if we can take a look at an STL file. Here's a dodecahedron in... Oh, it's binary. I can't show it.
There you go.
But it's pretty simplistic in terms of how you parse it. It's just a list of geometric information, and it is just triangles. Cool. But this STL to mesh tool will spit out... Let's see if any of my assets are in here. Meshes. Yes.
JSON 5.
JSON 5, baby. It's basically JSON with trailing commas and comments.
Yep.
Which is exactly what you need.
It's wonderful.
Yes. So you get a format that looks like this. You get vertices, you get triangle indices, and then you get line indices. So it's actually kind of spitting out exactly the raw mesh thing that we wanted.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
If you take a look at X-Wing, though, it's tremendously more complicated, right?
Yep.
And obviously, so I didn't edit this manually. I could have done it for the cube, and I probably did do it with the cube, and probably just like eyeballed this for an hour, just trying to make sure that it was right. But even the dodecahedron is already at the edge. It's not even formatted, right? It's already at the edge of what you could even comprehend. Like, this is a little bit hard to work with.
Totally. Okay.
So just going back to this now, let's see how much of this is visible. Let's see here. I was on the eraser. Can we see this on the stream? Oh, yes. I'm relieved. I thought this was going to be a whole thing, getting it to work. So one of the things that I mentioned about, battle, like Spectre, what it did correctly is that it wasn't, or rather what Battlezone was doing correctly, even though it was showing kind of like transparent faces, it was showing quads and other polygons, right? And if you just use triangles and just drew lines, if you just use the triangle indices to figure out what the line indices were, this would be extremely busy geometry. Like each one of these polygon faces would be, 3 or 4 triangles, right? Or 5. It's 5 faces, 5 edges, 5 triangles. Right?
Gotcha. Yeah, and one technique I've seen for that is you can detect if multiple vertices have the same normal. Like that's how you figure out what a face is.
So that's actually a really good technique. What I did for this tool wasn't that smart because I didn't really understand any of that stuff. So what I did for this technique is I basically said, like, you're going to have a bunch of triangles in your base data. And what I did is I said, okay, which triangles, I'm going to organize the triangles by their shared vertices. And so triangle A and triangle B share 2 vertices. So this edge is a candidate to be removed as a line, basically. And then I asked, okay, well, how do I know if I want to remove it or not? Well, basically, if they're flat, if they combine together to make a flat surface, then that line should be removed. So I did actually take a look at the normal, right? I took a look at this normal. And I took a look at this normal. And I think what I did is similar to the lighting equation that we did the other day. Like I took the dot product, or maybe the cross product. I did something over it. It was like totally homebrew. I don't know what it is. But like basically, if the normals were equivalent, right? If they were basically roughly pointing in the same direction, I said, okay, we're going to get rid of that edge.
Cool.
And so I'm going to emit line indices for A and B, and A and C, and B and C, and B and D, and D and C, basically. Like I was just like, I just emit line indices for all of those things except for this one in the middle here. Right. So that was how I did the pre-processing. So what's being loaded into the game is not a GLTF file, it's not an OBJ file, it's my own kind of homegrown thing with all this like line geometry in it. And the end result of that, if we draw both the triangles into the depth buffer and the lines into the color buffer, is what we're looking at right now.
Neat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that brings us to the techniques like this. Right. Which this one is actually even fancier than it needs to be, because it's also, not only is it drawing geometry with anti-alias lines, it's also drawing grids. And the grid is not part of the geometry. It's not as if every single one of these squares was that. So it's actually doing something really, really fancy. So it may actually be maybe more complicated than it's worth to go through this example. But let me see if I can. I actually had been reading an article offline. Let's see. There's an article in here, which of course I didn't have the foresight to record the URL, that I thought was at least had nice pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was 3D Studio Max. Yeah, I think this was one of the ones I was looking at. So this actually is kind of close to what we were looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's opaque faces, and it's showing genuine polygons, right?
Yep.
The disadvantage of this technique that I did here for the X-Wing demo is that not only is it kind of this esoteric format that you have to have a processing step to take care of, it's also the case that you don't have a way of introducing lines on faces if you actually wanted to have those lines. So if, what if you had like a triangle inside a square and they were flush against each other, but you really wanted that triangle to be in there, right? Maybe you could accomplish that with like a second mesh, right? Maybe that's a way that we could do that. And I think that's going to actually be an open problem for us to solve, even if you want to do that, is like, how do you get it so that at least you can sort of visualize what you want to do inside of our 3D creation tool and have it look at least approximately what it's going to look like in the tool when we throw it into the game, right?
Interesting. Okay.
So what's interesting about this article, it doesn't actually go into detail because obviously this is just a tutorial of how to use a particular tool. But there's actually a wireframe material built into 3D Studio Max, and it just gives you this, right? So the question that I have in my head, you can kind of see it here. It's a little bit dark. The question I have in my head is like, well, what exactly is this material? Because clearly, like, you need to be able to load this material into a game engine and have it run, and that's running a shader, and it's doing all the same stuff that we know about. And it's right now, it's kind of a mystery of what it's actually doing with the shader. Yeah. So here's a picture of the actual triangle geometry of this weapon here, right? You can tell because there's actually triangles here. It's like a huge mess of geometry. Rendering the actual triangles as lines looks like garbage.
Yep.
Right? Or it just looks kind of messy, right? But this one here actually has the polygons. So you can do it. You can do it in 3D Studio Max. And so I was like, okay, well, how do you do that? And
that's so interesting. Okay.
This is where we get into what is sort of adjacent to a technique called cell shading. Or toon shading.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that I hadn't really connected one to the other, but that makes a lot of sense because that's basically tracing. It's like tracing outlines with a shader.
Yeah. So I think the first cell shaded game that everyone thinks about is Wind Waker, right?
I was going to say 13.
What is 13? 13 the game?
Yeah, it was like a old cell shaded PS2 game. Do 13. Sorry, XIII for PS2.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Totally. Yes.
And like if you find one of the game screenshots, it's like.
Was this good?
The original was apparently they just remade it very badly. So
I heard about this remake.
yeah,
yes.
so put
It's
PS2
kinda funny, right?
in there because I remember the original. Yeah, I don't know how they remade it so badly.
This is the remake. Is this the PS2 version?
Close.
It could be PS2.
Could be, yeah.
This looks a little bit more high def. It's very crisp, right?
I saw that you're looking at MU Paradise, so I think it's probably the a 4K PS2.
Oh, there's such a thing. It's like upscaled. But anyways, this is actually kind of a cool image, right? It does give us a nice example of toon shading or cell shading. Cell shading, I'm not sure exactly whether this is the appropriate metaphor because cell shading actually, the classic algorithms, as far as I read, actually work a little bit differently than something like this, which is, I think, more approaching what we want to do. With cell shading, The teapot example is actually the classic one. The Wikipedia description is actually pretty good. So one popular method is to first render a black outline, slightly larger than the object itself. Okay, easier said than done. Okay, well, how do you do that, right? We've got the exact mesh. How do you make something that's larger and black? So what they do is they invert backface culling.
What?
Yeah. So you know how the backface culling in Manchester. Let's crank it out here. I'm in the renderer. I'm not the renderer. Yeah, we call the backface. We could just as easily call the front face. Okay. We can also change the winding of the triangles, right? From counterclockwise to clockwise. So I think what they do is they actually change the winding of the triangles. They change the winding of the culling to be basically clockwise. And so what that means is you're actually drawing the interior faces of these surfaces. And you also want to draw the ones that are facing away from the camera. So I think they might also cull the front face as well. So what that's actually going to do, not only do you do that, you draw that, and you draw it in black. And then you also slightly jitter the object. You kind of just like move it around, probably in screen space a tiny bit. You just like kind of move it around by like literally like a single pixel or like a couple pixels, right? And then you draw the regular object, and you composite those two things together. So if you think about it, what you're actually looking at when you're looking at this lip here, at the top of the teapot, is actually the game drawing the inside lip of the rim of the teapot with a little bit of jitter in black. Yeah.
That's so interesting. That sounds like an expensive technique though, because like you're doing so many more renders of the object.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting.
That's absolutely right, actually. And I think a lot of shaders these days, a lot of games out there today, like if you look at the Cyberpunk rendering overview that was linked in the show notes like 1 or 2 shows ago, you basically see them rendering each object or rendering the whole scene multiple times.
Yep.
I think we talked a little bit about the technique of deferred shading before. And the idea behind deferred shading is rather than draw each object to the maximum fidelity using all the techniques at once, what they do is they draw every single object in the scene using one shading technique. And then they draw the whole scene again using a different shading technique, and then composite the two full screen frame buffers together. This technique that we described with cell shading is not that, where instead what you're doing is you're doing multiple render passes over the same object. Much in the same way that my X-Wing demo did 2 draws, right? It drew into the depth buffer and then it drew the lines.
Yep.
Right. The difference here is they're not changing geometry, and that's a big advantage it's a big advantage over what I was doing with the X-Wing demo, because I had to create essentially create a second mesh.
Right. Yeah.
That happened to share the same vertices as the first one, right? Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, so that's basically the technique for toon shading. The thing is that if you think about that, it's still not giving us any intermediate polygons, which is still what we want. Yeah. So that's where we get to the techniques that are introduced here. Unfortunately, this is also kind of like conflated with some other stuff that's going on here. But we can try our best to kind of work through this code in the next 10 minutes.
Sounds good.
I'm trying to think here. Let's see if I can just look wireframe. I want to try to find a simpler example. OpenGL partial derivative. Partial derivative is the name of the technique that we rely on in the fragment shader.
Okay.
How do you render primitive? Yeah, see, a lot of these people are just suggesting like use the thing that's built in that we don't have in WebGL.
Boo. Okay. Yeah, that won't do.
Yeah.
Huh.
Solid wireframe GLSL. See, this looks pretty promising, doesn't it?
Yeah, interesting. Okay, and it's even got so you can choose how your coordinates are. All right, yeah.
Yeah. This is the vert shader, and this is the fragment shader.
Do we need to be passing in?
Oh, and they're including some other stuff in here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is
And we have to pass in like a barycentric version of our model.
so we don't.
Okay. I guess
that's
I
where
saw
maybe
the attribute vec2 barycentric, and I thought it was coming from the mesh.
yeah. So this thing in the grid shader here that we're looking at, actually, this example is probably not great. Boy, it would have been helpful if I remembered some of the things that I saw before. Let's maybe try to take a little bit more. What are screen space derivatives? Don't be afraid by the term derivative. Don't be afraid because of the term derivative. We're not going to be doing too much calculus, even if I mean, maybe you're good at calculus.
Calculus is fine.
Yeah. But it's not even doing derivatives in the kind of like functional derivation sense. Let's see here. Maybe let's just ride this and the other example, even though they're more complicated than they need to be.
Hey, Jeff, you want to see it?
Oh, there's also geometry shader, which we don't have on WebGL either, which can do things like eliminate. It basically can do the thing that I was doing, but like do it in the shader, like eliminate common lines and stuff.
I just sent you
common
edges. A cool example. I don't think it's probably not quite what you're looking for, but it's a nice demo.
It's cool.
It's cool.
Okay.
So you can uncheck see-through at the top. It's basically just a nice program, but you can change the thickness, you can change the dash and the stroke effects. I'm curious what they're doing.
Oh
here.
yeah, totally. Can I get rid of the?
Yeah, so turn off squeeze.
Can I just make these lines? Can I simplify these?
Yeah, turn off dash enabled. I don't know why they did any of this shit. And then under effects, squeeze, turn off squeeze, and then it looks like a wireframe. Yep.
Oh yeah, this is perfect. This is like exactly what we want. I mean, the lines get a little bit thinner up here, but
right. Well,
maybe that's okay.
There's a thickness slider and a see-through slider at the top, which is neat. And then there's also edge removal as a checkbox at the bottom.
Edge removal. Yeah.
Maybe if we picked a different geometry, it might do it. Yeah.
This is like 50% of what we want. Again, like it's not 100% at these. Like the fact that the lines are thicker in some cases than others, I'm not. Maybe it's this dual thick slider. No, it's not doing anything.
I mean, it's a little over programmed. But if you were to, like, if you go to the torus geometry and turn on and off edge removal, we can see some of what we're looking for.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know if it's helpful or not, and I guess maybe you might actually.
No, it is because like it does raise the question of how we get rid of this thing here. So what do we got? 7 minutes. Let's see how much I can sketch out, and like it's gonna be kind of me blabbering.
Yeah, we got this.
How do I move? Here we go. I have to do this twice. This is tough. I'm struggling here. How do I move the canvas? I think I just click and drag. Great. Okay, so we have this is actually kind of good because this service has a grid line in the background, right? Oh, that looks terrible, but whatever. And you can imagine those being pixels, right? Like if you're drawing something, all of those pixels would be if you're drawing this triangle, all of those pixels would be shaded in.
Yep.
And we have like point A, point B, XYZ. just coordinates, right? You like what the fragment shader actually receives is all of the vertex attributes interpolated as a weighted average of whatever their values are at the. So basically, sorry, let me say that again. We take each vertex has separate vertex attribute values, and in this case, the only attributes are just the positions. But you can imagine that you have other things like normals, right, or UV coordinates for textures. That's all the mesh defines, and it's up to the fragment shader or the GPU really to figure out what the value of those attributes are at all the intermediate positions in the triangle, right? Mm-hmm. That actually happens before you even get to the fragment shader, right? So by the time you get to the fragment shader, you have an interpolated normal, you have an interpolated position, you have an interpolated vertex color as well, right? That's how we could do the gradient. Remember when we drew the triangle and it was just a gradient of colors? Like you didn't even write that code. Like the graphics engine just did that for you. In addition to the interpolated raw value, you can also enable partial derivatives so that you have access to those values as well. And enabling it, there's like a special directive that you do. It looks like what do you call it? A preprocessor directive in C. Mm-hmm. You just enable standard derivatives here, and it gives you functions that look like this f width. It also gives you functions that look like calculus expressions. I wonder if he uses them here. Yeah, unfortunately, what I want is this code right here, but it's not in this example. I guess that's the point of this library, is that it's a library, right? Yeah, he's using f-width as well. So what you get in addition to the attribute values at a particular point is you also get access to how those attribute values are changing at that point in both the X in screen space. Okay. Mm-hmm. So imagine that this triangle is like flat on the screen. You basically get so V is whatever the attribute value is. It could be your color, it could be your position, it could be the normal, it could be your UV. You can, once you flip that flag on in the shader, not only do you have access to the value of the attribute, the interpolated value of the attribute, but you can also essentially get the derivative of that. And it's not doing calculus. All it's doing is taking the value of that attribute at your current point on the screen and comparing it to the value in the next point over. Does that make sense? Or the one above you. And it knows what the delta of that value is.
This is a little mind-breaking, but okay.
Yeah. So the question is, why would you want to know that, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason is that now you can know essentially how quickly that value is changing over time. And that allows you to do... boy, we got 1 minute to talk about the most complicated idea in this whole thing. And I'm trying to figure it out as I'm talking out loud right now.
Well, I'm getting a good sense of what we're doing on Thursday too now. So
yeah. So what f-width is here is I think more or less the sum of those two things. So it's basically like or the vector of those two things, dv dx delta v delta y. That's what f-width is here. Although I don't know, I think this is a matrix operation because the coordinate that we're working with here is two-dimensional. Although you can't divide by a matrix. So this must be a constant factor. I think it might just be adding the two, or maybe even doing the Euclidean distance of those two things.
Interesting.
Like when I say that, it's just sort of like, maybe it's this.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. And at the very least, okay, one of the things that this could let you do for, let's say, common edge elimination is you could say, I'm going to draw a little scale model here. There's two kind of ways that you can interpret this drawing that I did in like it's drawn in 2 dimensions, so you can't really tell what 3-dimensional geometry that's representing. It could just be a flat diamond that has to be composed, a flat diamond or trapezoid that has to be composed of triangles because the GPU can only use triangles. Or it could be representing like a fold in a piece of paper, right? Where you actually have that. And how would you know whether you're at the edge or not? So one thing you could do is when you're drawing this point, you could actually check that delta value for the normal. And if it's not 0, then you know that you actually have a fold.
I see. So
for
that point, you're on the edge.
Yes, exactly. However, if the delta is 0, you actually know that you're nothing is changing, so you don't have to draw anything.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Huh. The other question is like, how do you know whether you're on the edge to begin with or not? And anyways, I think this is gonna like this direction is basically just gonna be more and more embarrassing for me as I continue to talk. But the gist of it is knowing what the partial derivative of a particular attribute value is, first of all, is not a complicated. All it really is like the difference between the attribute value on the pixel that you're currently on and then the attribute value of the next pixel over in the same primitive. When I say primitive, I mean the same triangle.
Yeah.
Right? And that's in screen space. It's with X and Y. It is not relative to X, Y, and Z. It's not in world space or any other space but screen space. Excuse me. What this allows you to do is you can use these values to draw distance-independent lines. You can draw lines of thickness that is independent of the distance. That's essentially what that derivative value allows you to do, which is why we can draw these lines that are very, very far from the screen, but they have the same thickness as lines that are close to the screen.
That makes sense. Yep.
Yeah. The other thing that he's doing here is he's basically saying, like, if a particular point inside of my triangle, and his triangles are really big, right? His triangles are like whole hillsides in this demo. Basically saying if the pixel I'm currently on has a certain proximity to the XY grid, which is just an absolute thing. Like if I'm next to 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, if my pixel is near those things, I want you to draw white. If I'm not near those things, I don't want you to draw anything at all. That's how he's making the grid, basically. That's what this fragment shader is doing.
That's really clever. Yeah.
So how about I propose this? This is a deceptively simple piece of code. Why don't we both take a look at it and stare at it for a while and see what we can glean out of it?
I think that sounds good, yeah.
Then I think researching partial derivatives, both in terms of drawing lines, because you actually use the partial derivative technique to do line drawing, but you also use the partial derivative technique to do common edge elimination. And I think that this will be a big deal for us because what it allows us to do, ultimately, I think the goal of all of this is to be able to use a regular-ass 3D program, use a regular-ass export of those meshes, but get wireframe properties that we want, wireframe visuals that we want, right?
Yeah, and I'm very okay with if the face appears flat to the human, don't draw the lines.
Right.
Our tank right now is overly complicated, but I think we can model for that with that constraint, and it'll be really clear.
Yes. And then from there, we can talk about, well, how might we approach the subject of color if we wanted to do color, or how might we approach the subject of, well, you know how I said before, what if we actually want to deliberately draw a design that is flush on a surface, but we want it to be distinct and we want it to appear on that face, even though technically our common edge and elimination would get rid of it, right?
Yep.
Those are all interesting things that we can think about.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got some shader Cellcat and a couple examples to go through.
Okay, great. So first, so the final thing I'll say is like, this is as much as I was able to look up when I was trying to go to bed last night and I couldn't sleep. You know, so I was just like reading shit in my bed on my phone.
Nice.
So I don't have the URLs for any of these things. So there may well be other techniques out there that people use to do wireframe rendering with solid faces, but I think we're getting pretty warm here in terms of like proximity to techniques.
Cool. Yeah, I can like feel it making sense on the edge of my brain, which is great.
Yeah. Oh, look, everything I just said doesn't make sense to me right now. So
No,
hopefully
it's good. Perfect.
we can actually look into it. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Okay, cool. Whew. All right. We'll be back at it on Thursday then.
Okay. Whew. All right. Well, Happy New Year, everybody, and we'll see you Thursday.
Happy New Year. See ya.